Welcome to another weekend here on the platform. It is our tradition here to examine developments in the polity, and this edition will be no different. My name is Sam Omasheye. We are in the heat of Nigeria's electoral season, and every day, big players in the political field introduce new twists to the game of politicking. Some have described the invasion of the National Assembly by operatives of the DSS an affront to democracy, while others say it is all part of a hidden plot. Also this week, Godswill Akpabio, former governor of Akwa Ibom State and until recently the minority leader in the Senate, has made a calculated move with his defection from the main opposition PDP to the ruling APC. How favorable the alignment or realignment strategy adopted by defectors will rest in the hands of the electorate. My column this week is titled Usurper and an Imam of Peace.
The choice of verb distorted the news headlines. Bukola Eleyimi Saraki did not defect from the APC. He was forced to defect. Was first is a passive tense which connotes that the subject, that is, the Senate President, did not take the action out of his own volition. He was temporizing, but word leapt to his ears that a query later was in the offing from Oshomole's office. Eleyimi fled in spite of the billowy pride of his agbada. You cannot expect him to respond to the query. The police had just chafed him, and Eleyimi scoffed back at the IG, acting above the law by not showing up at an invitation. To wait for an APC censure would make him a query letter writer. That would sully his status as a man some people have started to designate Organa Master. He stepped out of the APC portal because he had to follow his troops who had gone to prepare a place for him in the big PDP mansion he had abandoned with regal flourish only a few years ago. Since his men had moved, the clamor revved up for him to scoot over to the other side of the Senate aisle. Some wondered why he sat transfixed. But it was the immobility of indecision. The plan had not panned out as envisioned. Saraki and his gang laid the defection eggs, but in the fullness of time, some eggs did not hatch. Saraki would call them bad eggs. Saraki waltzed away as the leader of a minority. He did not want to go over naked, exposed as the usurper. A usurper morally, if not legally. By remaining a Senate president, he is overthrowing a throne that he once occupied. He has handed over to himself without a ceremony or oath or Quran, especially without a holy book, since he has embarked on an act of political sacrilege. Like in Shakespeare's Hamlet, he is having a wedding and a funeral on the same throne simultaneously. He is mourning without admitting it his office as Senate President, but he is having a new wedding with it as a minority leader, still sitting still on an immoral throne. He is also wedding again a party he jilted about 4 years ago. Only a cold, calculating Eleyimi can pull off that pass of spectacular somersault and schizophrenia. But more striking has been Eleyimi's trouble with the father figure. He has never loved to bow to a father. He started it in his biological state in his relations with his father Oloye. Bukola Saraki takes from father but hates to show gratitude to father. Oloye loved him, nurtured him, and even started him on the path of commerce, but he was not a good manager. He ruined a major bank in the country with his managerial ineptitude. He became a governor in the shadows of Oloye, and that made him see himself as the master of the Kwara universe, even if his stewardship was not transformational. So apart was he from his father as he dabbed about on his peacock throne as governor that some mischief makers went about with unfounded allegations of his paternity. Make no bones about it, Oloye was his father. Eleyimi only had anxiety about his sonship. He was uncomfortable accepting authority. As governor, he did not feel his powers complete. Hence, he wanted to become president. In that position, he would have outflanked his father, but he could not do much in the PDP. He had a problem with the hierarchy. He wanted to be seen as the heir, but the North thought he was not North enough, and the West and South thought he was not South enough. He became and still is a factor of ambiguity in Nigeria's geopolitics. It is unfair to him, I must say. He should be seen first and foremost as a Nigerian. He glided over to the APC and it became the same story. He seemed to have eaten the humble pie by withdrawing any zeal for the post of president. Alas, he was forced again to look for a position of president that would work under another father figure, also designated president. Even to obtain that, he fought by stealth. The hierarchs did not want him. He slunk his way like a night cart onto the position of Senate President. Having given his party leaders a punch in the nose, he expected them to kowtow to him. He had not stooped, but he conquered the house. He met a President Buhari who was too lofty to stoop. It became a standoff of one father against son who did not want a father. For him, it has not always been about vision, but spoils. Was it a Freudian slip when he complained about juicy offices he wanted and did not get? He lamented about Lagos and Katsina. He did not say roads or schools for the poor. He said he did not care for position. So why not step down? This is hypocrisy writ large. That standoff led to the worst Senate in history. He has now moved over to the other side. A new act has begun in Saraki's quest to exorcise a father. Will he find fulfillment there? The point as to whether he might become a Senate president at the end of his tenure or whether he should be removed is a moot point to me. The 8th Senate is, to all intents and purposes, a dead chamber. It cannot achieve much. If Saraki wants the perks and insolence of office till May next year, it will not extricate him from the shadow of historical infamy of a man who usurped the throne until it expired. If the Senate prorogues indefinitely, the president has the executive powers to fund INEC elections and other necessities. Eleimi already has met his Balogun. It is all over but the puffin. The Imam was the man, not those who wielded guns and machetes and spilled homesteads and streets with the gore and blood of their fellow humans. He was a cleric in his soul, not for the ceremony of piety or extravagance of sacerdotal powers. Abdullahi Abubakar kept about 300 Christians in his mosque and looked the goons in the eye and said he was not hiding any Christians. That is what Biodu Jayifo called truthful lie in his book on Nigerian literature. The 83-year-old man did not blink. He could not fight. He had no arms. He had love, and his tender heart routed the army of jackals in the name of God and tribe in the recent Plateau genocidal rumble. Governor Simon Lalong of Plateau State gave him due recognition, brought him before camera lights to his office. The man looked fragile, but his act rippled with muscles. He is a Muslim, but he is a lover of God first. He is not a sectarian bigot. His blood hums with universal sentiment. Governor Lalong also recommended him for national award. This is the sort of national recognition that makes sense, not the ones handed to charlatans who con us in the name of God, in the name of the people, and in the name of tribe.
Public affairs analyst Bola Oba, I know as the Red Cap Chief, and Executive Director, Committee for the Protection of People's Mandate, Nelson Ekujimi, join me now to analyze developing political issues in Nigeria. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
So let me start with Nelson. There have been so many stories about what happened.
Yeah.
The SSS people were there to lay siege to, correction of English. Some people are saying lay siege on. It's wrong English. Lay siege to the National Assembly. The PDP people, mainly PDP people, were there early to see the act of impunity. Then the vice president sacks, almost like pushing a sacred idol off its grove. What do you make of it?
I recollect in 2014, as an election observer in the Ekiti State gubernatorial election and the Osun State gubernatorial election in 2014, you had this type of scenario where security operatives were in hoods and, unidentified. And I said, not again. But there were some interesting scenarios to the whole issue. I saw some of the senators, and it was speculated, or people read it, I didn't see it, that Senator Bemure Bruce said the APC senators had gone in through the back door and they were in the National Assembly. Lo and behold, the news was out there that, the PDP senators were being debarred from accessing the National Assembly. Lo and behold, that when they went in, there were no APC members there. So for me, what happened at the National Assembly some few days back was an aberration. It was an assault on democracy, and God so good, the acting president acted swiftly in sacking the head of that institution, and he has promised, to conduct an investigation to unravel what transpired on that day, because there are various angles to that story that, it still puzzles the mind.
Yeah. Well, what are these various angles that you think ought to be looked at?
The angle that is being canvassed by apologists of the ruling party is that Daura, the sacked DG of the DSS, allegedly conspired with Saraki to effect the treasonous drama with a view to helping Saraki rehabilitate his public persona, get sympathy for him. The story or that line of argument may seem plausible to those who may find comfort in wanting to excuse the treasonable conduct that was acted by the sacked DG. And whilst one is praising the courage of the vice president, the acting president, for relieving the guy of his job, I just want to throw some questions. And I tell people, Saraki, for me, has earned a legacy of infamy that it will take the miracle of God to redeem him, because we look in the direction of a failed bank.
Is it a failed bank? 3. Trade Bank, Savannah, and Societe Generale.
And
so he has become Nigeria's financial undertaker.
And hundreds of lives are still, till today,
at stake, and their families, and so on and so on.
And some died.
Yes.
I know 1 or 2 persons who committed suicide because they lost money.
Yes.
Believing when the fiduciary responsibility is his family hold them whilst he was still in active management. Yes. So I am no apologist of Saraki, but the only thing is that if we were to chase the rabbit of the logic that is being presented, I would want to ask people, was it Saraki also who conspired with the IGP and Daura, the sacked Daura, to send security operatives to go and harangue the Benue legislature? There
was a report supposedly brought out by the IG, who was asked to go and look at what's going on. We still want to know if this man acted alone, because he has been acting with impunity from day one. Remember the case of the sting operation, which I saw, which I always call a stung operation, because it turned out to be more stinging the reputation of the security than even the judges. Okay. He was involved in that. The case of Ekpenyong,
contradictory letters.
This man,
contradictory letters to the president and the Senate,
broke down the presidency into parts under the watchful eye of a president who does nothing but look. He did that. Now we want to know, if this man is acting a script, what will he gain from it? It's still curious to me that he will be doing all of this and then he will be acting alone.
Yes.
What is he doing? Is he acting on behalf of the president?
Yes, I think that is what we must ask. I wouldn't want to toe the line of Bola, who has already assumed a position which he has ascribed to to certain class of people. For me, I'll throw my cards open until investigation is conducted and the findings made public. I want to believe that the leads are out there for the security agencies, to investigate what transpired on that day. And I'm sure the acting president must have given the Inspector General of Police, the authority to go and unravel whether this man.
I hope he's given a carte blanche.
I hope so, because
that means
I wasn't the
open power.
Yes, I'm not the one, or I wasn't the one who gave him that power. Hold on. Yeah. I'm not the one who gave him that power. Just like you have said, I hope he's giving a blank check, to go.
And he does it well.
Yes,
but
and
the point is whether does the IG have a track record to even report, to even investigate impunity, he himself being a kingpin of impunity?
I believe that the police as an institution has the wherewithal to act diligently on this matter. I believe if the report comes to the acting president's table, or maybe the president when he must have returned, I'm sure there will be a means of, looking at that report to see whether a thorough job has been done. And if if the IGP has not done a thorough job, one expects, a reinvestigation of the issue.
One other question I think ought to be investigated is that the members of both political parties, the leadership of both political parties, have to account for what they were doing a day previous to that, what they planned a day previous to that. They have to ask questions. Why lawmakers, who probably didn't always want to come to work until 2 or 3 o'clock, and who most often didn't come to work, all gathered together early in the morning. At 7 a.m.
And they have to know.
What was the headlong hysteria about fidelity to work for the people?
And they have
stung them at that time.
And they have to ask if some people actually conclaved in a hotel the day before.
The last word I say anyway is that we need to get to the bottom of this, because this
with
is
professionalism.
Unacceptable. This is unacceptable
in a democracy.
Within a democracy.
Very true.
And it's unacceptable. They have to know that everybody is watching. I do not want any day where Lawa and Daura will find one way or the other to be rehabilitated, which will mean bringing to nothing what just happened a few days ago.
He was part of those who were rehabilitated Mainana. You've forgotten.
Yes.
They could get the grace that
yes, we hope that it's not rehabilitated, because that will make nonsense of what had just happened.
The vice president should be very careful. That's what the advice I will give him, as a political analyst, because some elements within this government who ought to be decapitated as Daura, they would now be positioned.
There are still others who need to be dealt with.
Yes.
Maybe they are coming.
You're getting my track now.
God's will, Akpabio's calculated move from the main opposition party, PDP, to the ruling APC. What do you make of that defection?
Well, like this defection, like every other defection, it's all about personal interest. It's not about the interest of the Nigerian people. And for me, it's worrisome that this defection is a violation of the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, because you recollect, in the case of Abegunde.
Yes, it is a violation of the laws of Nigeria, of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, but nobody has been able to get the law.
Yes, because
to make it work.
The law is clear.
The law is very clear.
No, it's one thing for the law to be clear, and for it to be clear
to be obeyed.
In practice,
that tells you the level of impunity in the system. Whereby the Supreme Court has made a judgment that except a party in crisis cannot function as a unit.
Yes,
but in this case,
some people can argue that the PDP has been in crisis. Hold on.
Yeah.
That some people can say there has been a crisis in the APC from the beginning.
Yes.
Since the beginning, when Saraki and his cohorts decided to overthrow the leadership and create a Senate leadership and the House of Representatives leadership. So people can argue.
Let's visit the definition.
Hold on.
Let's even agree that there's a crisis in the APC because of the indiscipline or errant nature of the leadership of the Senate. But the truth of the matter is that as we speak, the party is still one indivisible entity. We don't have a fractional chairman of APC. Neither do we have a fractional chairman of PDP and other executives.
Gentlemen, let's visit the pronouncement of the Supreme Court, the exact words used by the law lords on the definition of division and fractionalization. That the party must be in a state that is impossible and impracticable for the party to be seen as one. Is APC in a state that it is impossible and impracticable using the phraseology of the law lords?
No.
No.
The answer is no.
All this.
But if you ask me, I would say the APC was not one for a long time.
No, but
Because hold on, I would say the APC was not one for a long time.
Doctrinally and ideologically is different from administrative.
No,
division.
administrative. They didn't use the word administrative, did they?
He said impossible.
You are the one breaking it down to administrative.
He said
They didn't use the word administrative in the law. Did they use it in my column over the past 3 years that the APC has not been one? I cannot contradict myself. In fact, I will say that my predictions have now come to pass because the cracks.
The literary ego is at stake.
Wait. That's why. No. That is why I am saying that those cracks that I already pointed out to have not come out. That's why I said in my column last week or so that it is like the autumn of the APC, where the weather. The leaves start coming out in their true colors. Where throughout the year it was green, deceptively green. Now you have brown, you have gold, you have red, you have yellow. Everybody now has to know who you are. Yeah?
When PDP members of the National Assembly were cross-carpeting to the APC, if the Attorney General had gone to seek further clarification, to make sure that those people were booted out. Unbeknownst to the APC establishment, they didn't know that Saraki and Dogara were giving them, when you play draft, sharpu. Because they knew they were.
If people like us know, how would they not know? They knew.
It was in the open.
So you see that
it's the culture of impunity.
That's why I said the problem, and you said it last week, that the problem begins and ends with the man who said, I'm for everybody and I'm from nobody. And on that note, I thank you.
On that agreement note,
no. I don't know whether I agree with you. I don't know whether I agree with you.
For my last edition submission. Okay.
No, it was not a submission. It was obvious.
Give me a good answer. Thank you for the opportunity once again.
Thank you. The big talk this week is with the Managing Director of the Niger Delta Development Commission and a top shot in Akwa Ibom politics, because he speaks in this interview both to the activities of the NDDC and also Akwa Ibom politics, in which he's a major player. A program note though, the interview took place before the defection of God's Will Akpabio. Nsima Ekere, welcome to this show, sir.
Thank you very much, son.
Well, it's been about 2 years plus you've been in the saddle in NDDC. Am I right? Something like that.
You should stop making us feel bad. It's not yet 2 years. We started on the 5th of December 2016. Yes, it's close to close to 2 years. We still have about 6 months to go to make it 2 years. 2 years. Yes, but
how has it been? I mean, when you came,
very challenging 2 years. Very, very challenging, I would say.
One of the greatest challenge was in trying to sanitize the finances. You made a lot of play at the beginning of that. Yeah. What were those challenges, and how have you handled that?
When we came into NDDC, one of the things we discovered was that there's been a whole lot of overtrading in NDDC. We had thousands of projects scattered across the entire region. most of which were not completed.
We're talking the entire region. Talking about 9 states.
9 states of the Niger Delta.
Niger
You
Delta,
have
even the southeast. So.
yes, we have Abia and Imo from the southeast,
yeah.
and then of course the 6 states of the south,
including Ondo.
Ondo, so that makes it. That makes
So
it
it's the one region. It's not the typical Nigerian region.
That's the Niger Delta region of Nigeria.
Yes.
So we had projects all over the place, and then we discovered that most of those projects were non-performing. Some of them contractors had been out of sight for upwards of 6, 7, 10 years. You know, and then we needed to find out what was going on. So we caused a project audit to be done. The major problem we've discovered is that most of the projects are not functioning because the contractors are being owed. Most of them have IPCs for work done that have not been paid. Interim payment certificate. You know, if you give a job to a contractor and he performs, he, you know, depending on how much work is done, he gets a valuation of the work done, and then you price it. So that gives him an interim payment certificate. So that's
supposed to be as good as cash.
Which is supposed to be as good as
cash.
But unfortunately, NDDC, because of what I'll call the overtrading, you know, they haven't been able to meet up with all of these due payments because they don't have the funding, they don't have the finances to meet up. You know, so there was need for us to, we call them the 4 R's when we came in, you know, to reform the balance sheet of NDDC in terms of, I just talked about overtrading and so on and so forth, reform the governance systems, restore NDDC back to its core mandate, because we saw that there was a little bit of deviation. We were a little bit distracted. We left what the core mandate, the major reasons for setting up the NDDC, what it was, and then we started being influenced by, you know, social, political, you know, forces in the environment. So we wanted to restore the NDDC back to its core mandate, and generally to reaffirm the staff, the stakeholders, and every person connected with the NDDC, our commitment to doing what is right and proper. So that's the 4th R. And so that's what made up the 4 R's. We've made tremendous improvement, I must tell you. In terms of the balance sheet, we've been able to cancel so far about 1,000 non-performing projects. So that way we take them out of the balance sheet and make the balance sheet look slightly better. Okay. We've been able to also get a lot of contractors back to site, contractors who had abandoned their project sites for several years.
Now, what are the parameters for about 1,000 contracts that you have discarded and the ones that you have restored to site? What are the difference?
Okay. Now, the first set of 624 projects that we determined, which we cancelled, contractors who had been employed and for upwards of 6 to 8 years, they hadn't even mobilized the site. They showed no commitment and no capacity to even do the work.
Yeah, before it used to be that in NDDC, you were given money to go and do contracts.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. and I'll tell you something, Sam. Yeah. Most of those people already had collected mobilization.
Really?
Yes, and they didn't go to site. So we determined those, and then after that, we now projects up to 5% completion, and the contractors had been out of sight for a considerable period of time as well. And we, in all of these cases, don't forget, we gave the contractors an opportunity to come back. We wrote to them. We invited them to come back, and most of them didn't show up. So you could see clearly. I mean, the problem I'll tell you is this. Most times, well, earlier on when mobilizations were being paid, the contractor gets a project, maybe he gets, in NDDC, I hear there was a time you could even get up to 30% mobilization to go to site. And so the contractor probably looks at it and says, even if he goes to site to execute this project, how much profit will he make at the end of the day?
Let me just take the 30%
just take
profit and run.
And just walk away.
We don't have in our statutory books specific penalties Or is it that we don't want to pursue them? Those people who collected money and ran?
We've engaged with EFCC.
Okay.
You would have, if you've, the last couple of weeks, you would have heard the chairman of EFCC, Ibrahim Magu, say that he was going to go after NDDC contractors who received monies and haven't. That's one of the ways we want to try and recover those monies. Nigeria has a lot of laws in the statute books. How efficient they are in handling some of these issues is a different thing altogether. But yes, we are making efforts to try and recover these sums.
Talking of hydrocarbon, as you said, is there, you get a sense that the people are not getting the right kind of justice, even up to now, given the great level of environmental destruction that have been suffered by the people, either in the waterways or land farms and so on and so forth?
Well, I'll put it this way. You see, naturally, the Niger Delta region is very greatly challenged. I mean, I try to explain this. First of all, this is a region that, gets, in the 12 months of a year, maybe 10 of those 12 months, there's rainfall. The topography, over 70% of the Niger Delta region is actually below sea level. It's swampy.
It's not navigable.
It's not, So there's several challenges, and which is why it was important that NDDC was set up. I mean, before NDDC, there's been UMPADEC, there's been other committees, right from pre-colonial Nigeria. There's the agitation. Commission. Exactly. So, which is why organizations like the NDDC was set up to be able to address some of these challenges. So there's serious level of not just environmental challenges, but even infrastructural deficit in the region. For instance, you go to Bayelsa State, for instance, to go to construct a road from, we're doing a road now from Ogbia to Nembe, about 20-something kilometers. Now, that road, because of the terrain, if you do a similar distance of road in Sokoto or Plateau State, you spend probably 10% of the cost, what it would take for you to do a road in the Niger Delta region. So these are the challenges. And that's why you'll say, and the people of the region are still saying that enough has not been done, and you will agree with them.
There are so many young people who still need some kind of affirmation in life. As the NDDC boss, how much of this have you encountered, and how does it keep you awake at night?
At NDDC, we've done a lot to try to address the problems of unemployment, the problems of lack of jobs for our youth. We've done a lot of skill acquisition trainings for the people. As at early this year, late last year, we graduated in partnership with ESI, which is one of an NGO. We graduated about 100 people in house finishing skills. And as at that time, that was about 20. NDDC had trained over 23,000 youths in several skills, programs. We are presently in partnership with Smeden, developing an enterprise hub in the region. With a pilot scheme is being developed in Akwa Ibom. We discovered that Smeden had IDCs, Industrial Development Centers, all over the country. These IDCs have, over the years, been abandoned. They've really not been put to use. So we now partnered with Smeden to take one of their IDCs located in Akwa Ibom State. And we're going to, jointly, working with the private sector, set up an enterprise hub that would help, people with bright ideas, not just young people, to set up their own businesses. And we would not only provide training this time, we would also provide mentorship. So the idea is you bring somebody up, train him in whatever it is that he or she wants to do. First of all, they must come with good ideas.
Yeah.
So you give them some necessary training that would help them to set up, and then you provide mentorship. And so they get the training, they don't just go out. Before now, we train, we give starter packs, and they go. Some of them end up selling their starter packs and going back to status quo. So now, but we're not even doing that anymore. So we train you, give you whatever it is that you need to set up.
Mentor you.
And we allow you to set up within the hub.
Okay.
It's a large land. The land is huge.
Okay.
So we'll give you space within the hub. Come and set up your business here under our watchful eyes.
Let's see you grow.
Let's see you grow. Let's see how many people you can employ.
Okay.
So it's only after we've seen that you have sufficiently established yourself and the business, that's when we can now gradually ease you, win them into society, and hope that they would continue.
You have also complained about finances, that the NDDC is being owed lots and lots of billions.
Yes.
How far have you gone with that? Are you getting
Well, yes. You know, the law that set up NDDC specified how NDDC should be funded. Now, 15% of what is due to each of the member states, or the totality of the member states of the region, what they get as their statutory allocation every month, 15% of that is supposed to be paid by the federal government to NDDC. In addition to what we get from the private sector, the oil companies and oil and gas processing and producing companies. Over the years, and of course we're supposed to get 50% of the ecological fund going to the states as well. Over the years, we've discovered that unfortunately, the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation and the Minister of Finance has not been remitting to NDDC what they should actually have been remitting. At the last reconciliation, we had something in excess of 1.4 trillion that's outstanding from the federal government. So we did a letter to Mr. President to complain that this is where we are and that there's need for the government to please pay up what they owe to NDDC. It will help us to pay our contractors, to help us to get the contractors back to site, to complete these projects and let the communities take advantage of them. And Mr. President graciously gave us the approval that the Ministry of Finance and the Minister of Budget and Planning should sit down with NDDC, cause a reconciliation, agree on the exact figures, and agree an acceptable payment plan. This is the first time it's ever happened in the 17, 18 years of NDDC. And if you also notice in budget 2018, which has just been passed by the National Assembly, apart from the yearly provision for NDDC, there was another provision of 34 billion, which is like an advance payment of what the outstanding arrears over the years have been. Yes. So
beginning to cut into the...
Exactly. So we are making some progress.
Debts,
it's I mean, compared to how much is outstanding, it's little. It's a beginning, and it's a very positive step, for which we're indeed grateful to Mr. President for.
People have also said that the problem with NDDC is that it's too political. No matter how you want to say it, it becomes political. Everybody thinks that NDDC is a cash cow for politicians in the Niger Delta. It must be a pressure for whoever is in charge of NDDC.
Well, you see, I mean, I've encountered these
assertions.
Well, I don't know what to call it, but yes, we're being asked this on a daily basis. But I can tell you one thing. Yes, Because of I would say, the way the commission started, from the onset, and the fact that a lot of politicians, the National Assembly, for instance, oversight, in the exercise of its oversight functions, works with the NDDC. So there's been a lot of political interference. I won't deny that. Is it a cash cow? I disagree. Because, first of all, as a cash cow, you must have sufficient cash. We don't even have sufficient. I mean, I'm just telling you how much we're owing contractors.
Yes.
Even if we take all the money that comes in and we don't pay salaries and pay only to contractors, it's still not enough. It's like a tiny drop in the ocean. So we don't have the capacity to be a cash cow anymore. And that's number one. Then secondly, because of the advent, or since the advent of the Public Procurement Act, it's also, it's helped a lot of public establishments or public institutions to regulate procurement. So a lot of sanity has come into the system, I must tell you. Of course, but you had this initial impression that people had about NDDC. It's going to take time to change.
It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. It will take time to change, but we'll definitely get there. NDDC is definitely not a cash cow. It doesn't even have the capacity to be a cash cow. No.
Now, politics. Everywhere you read the signs, the tea leaves in Akwa Ibom, there's always Nsima Ekere somewhere on it.
Yes.
Recently, you held a rally for Mr. President on the auspices of the APC,
Yes.
and you delivered what some people saw as a rousing speech and all of that, and the crowd and so on. So what is the state of APC in Akwa Ibom? People say APC is a PDP state, so what are you doing there?
Well,
nobody since 1999 has won Akwa Ibom except PDP.
Well, first of all, you will say that since the advent of this political dispensation, it's a PDP, that has always been in power in Akwa Ibom State.
Yeah.
All of us
were PDP.
were PDP.
You were deputy governor.
I had the privilege of being deputy governor.
Yes.
In Akwa Ibom State, I was under the PDP.
Yes.
But also don't forget that as at that time, there was no APC.
I agree.
There was no APC. Now
But
that there is
in
APC,
2015.
APC only just started in 2015.
But won the center.
We won the center, yes. Yes, we won the center, but we couldn't win Akwa Ibom in 2015. But you see, a whole lot of work has been done in Akwa Ibom State APC since 2015. Over the years, in the last 3 years, you need to take note of the massive defections of politicians of repute and of note from PDP into APC.
Why so?
There's virtually no constituency of the state, no local government that you haven't had notable PDP leaders, move over to APC. Why so? We have an APC federal government who is performing. NDDC is a commission under the federal government, will report to Mr. President. Mr. President has used NDDC to do a lot of work in Akwa Ibom State.
People are saying that Ekere is using NDDC as a platform to govern Akwa Ibom as well as other things, as to counter-govern. That's my language, not what they're saying.
No.
To counter-govern Akwa Ibom. It's a way of competing with the sitting government. So you are acting as a sort of shadow government.
NDDC is not and can never be a substitute for a state government. we are not in competition with any of the state governments in the region. We are just an interventionist agency. Where we notice that there's a deficit in infrastructure, in education, health, and what have you, we intervene. If the state government is doing all the people need, there will be no need for us to intervene. Okay. We only intervene where we notice gaps and we know that, yes, this will add value to the various communities. We are not set up to compete with any state government. So I refuse totally to accept that NDDC is in competition.
And that you're not acting as a shadow governor.
I'm definitely not acting as a shadow government. I'm just doing, delivering on the mandate of NDDC. You don't forget that part of the reforms that we've instituted, the last hour is to reinforce our commitment to doing what is right and proper. So we must do the right things. Whether the last person did it or not is irrelevant. Okay, we know that it is the right thing to do, that the state that has the largest production of oil should naturally have the largest allocation of projects, and that's what we've tried to do.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, is that it's capable of being abused. That's the point. That's what you just showed, that in spite of the fact that that is what the NDC is supposed to do, to make sure that the projects are tied to hydrocarbon content, it is still capable of being abused. You corrected it. Some people say you corrected it because Akwa Ibom, you're from Akwa Ibom, you happen to be the MD of NDDC.
No, but
so you have to give justice to Akwa Ibom.
No, but you know what, Sam? I'm not the first MD of NDDC that's from Akwa Ibom State.
I know.
Yeah, the last MD, Basi Danabia, was also from Akwa Ibom.
Controversial.
I don't know about that one. I don't know about being controversial. I don't think it was.
Sam, I remember.
Yeah, so I'm not the first MD that's from Akwa Ibom. But like I said, I think at all times, public servants and people in positions of authority should always be guided by the principles of justice and equity and fairness. And we should do things to promote such principles as well.
People are saying that you are going to run for governor. I'm going to stand across the aisle to Udom Emmanuel. When are you going to declare that?
Well, first of all, until primaries of political parties are held, you won't know who the candidates on the other side is going to be. Yes, Udom Emmanuel is the governor on the PDP platform. And I know he wants to run for a second term. He has said so. So I don't know if he would win the ticket of his party. I think he will. I hope so. And then, so that means he would be on the PDP platform. In the APC family, we've not yet decided who the candidate would be. Of course, also at the party primaries, that will be decided. But I can also tell you that when I was being received by my community, I remember sometime last year, so one of the things that was presented was a call that I should, come and run the governorship. Also, sometime last month, the 5 local government areas of Ekere Benin Senatorial District, we call them a back 5. They had a reception for me, and they also invited me to come and to join the governorship race on the APC platform. And just last weekend, Ekere Benin Senatorial District also had a reception for me, and a large rally, a solidarity rally for Mr. President. And then, of course, the call for me to run for governor was also made, loud and strong. That's one senatorial district. The state has 3 senatorial districts, as you very well know. So we're still listening to what. still listening to what the other parts of the state are saying, and we are listening to them. We don't know what the outcomes will be yet. We don't want to preempt the outcomes, but keeping fingers crossed.
So many people who believe that you are the face of the APC. That's taking away the elder and former governor out of it.
Which former governor?
Former governor before Akpabio for president.
Governor Atta?
Atta, yes.
Governor Atta is now not political. He's retired from.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but he's
seen as the,
yes, he's
the patriarch.
Yes, of the state actually, and he belongs to all political parties. He belongs to APC, he belongs to PDP.
But,
as a father of the state.
But he has been very strongly in the APC narrative.
His Excellency Victor Atta loves Akwa Ibom State passionately and wants to see good governance in Akwa Ibom State.
Yeah.
I think that's probably his greatest wish and desire.
And you would say you are kind of his political son. Would you say that?
We share a lot in common.
Like a father and
like a father and a son.
That's what.
Yes.
In case you are given the mantle to become governor, what will you change in Akwa Ibom? No, you were deputy governor to Akpabio, and Akpabio is seen by many to have, been an impactful governor.
Yes.
When he was there. And
well, you see,
when it was going on.
what I'll say is I'll rather not preempt jump into talking about what I'll do or what I won't do.
You want to jump on the horse?
Yes.
Until you have,
I will wait until we get there and the decision is made, and then we can then talk about what we would like to do.
People have said that the APC people are underplaying his achievements, that when he constructs roads, they say that he didn't construct them. When he does business,
well, Sam, you want to see the roads he constructed. I haven't seen them. I want to see them. I'm at pains to see the roads he's constructed. He came. We've had a paint factory, Peacock Paints, that was out of production, and one of the first things he did when he got into government was to tell the world that he has revamped Peacock Paints. You can go to Peacock Paints today and see whether it's producing. The answer is that it's not producing. And thereafter, we had the government built a toothpick factory. And we also heard that the government built a pencil manufacturing facility, plant. Even though people said when they saw the pencils that were used at the flag off, that the pencils actually had made in China on them. I mean, the government, you see, Akwa Ibom State people are used to governments that deliver big dreams and major projects, not toothpick factory, toilet roll factory.
Those are big jobs.
Yeah, but none of them is functional as we speak. Last week on the newspapers, the landlord of the facility of the property where the so-called pencil plant is, came up and said, listen, that he has not even been paid his rent, and that the place has been locked up for months. Nothing is happening. Same with the toothpick industry. It's been closed down. So you really can't find anything, any tangible thing. There was also this controversy of late because the government claimed they have a rice, and then you go down there. I think it was Dr. Shobowale of the Vanguard who wrote an article. I think he went there, and everybody's disappointed with the claims of this government. They said they have that they did a fertilizer blending plant, and then we went to have a look at the so-called fertilizer blending plant, and I've been told that there's absolutely nothing like a blending plant there. So it's either the government is being deceived by its operatives, and the leader of the government believes that these people are doing these things, or there's something terribly wrong going on in the state. We had, at the beginning some months back, we had, campaigns all over the state that the state government has built a second runway in the airport. And if you go to the airport, there's absolutely no second runway. What you see there is a taxiway that was actually started by the previous administration. I was still in office when the taxiway contract was awarded. And as we speak, that contract has not been completed, just like virtually every other project that was ongoing at the advent of this administration 3 years ago. All these projects are uncompleted and not put to use. And so I really don't see what the achievements are. I would like to see the achievements.
Okay, we'll try to see what he will have to say to that. Well, it's been a very interesting conversation from NDDC to development challenges to handling finances and to the turbulent forays of politics. We have had Nsima Ekere, very articulate as ever. Welcome and thank you for being on this show.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for watching the program today. You can catch up with me in my published columns and articles on my website, www.samomashai.com, and follow me on Twitter. My handle is @samomashai. And this program also begins to air on terrestrial this week on Sunday at 1 p.m. So you can see it on GoTV, Star Times, and a few others at 1 p.m. on Sundays. Enjoy the rest of your day, and until next week, be good.